Welcome, everybody. We are so excited to have you today with Yeonmi Park. Yeonmi Park, thank you for being
Yes,
here.
thank you so much.
To give a brief introduction to those of you who may not be familiar with her story, Yeonmi Park is a North Korean defector. She escaped at the age of 13 years old. She's now dedicated her life to being a human rights advocate, and also she's an author. So I want to just jump right into my first question. You've escaped arguably the most oppressive regime in the entire world. With that, could you explain to the room the value of freedom? Many of us, America is the only thing we've ever known, and I feel we take it for granted because we don't know what the other side of the aisle looks like. So, could you explain to us what is the value of freedom?
Oh, I think even today I was walking here from the hotel and there were like lots of trees and the birds were chirping around. And, when I was in North Korea, I was never just being able to appreciate the birds. I always had to think about how I'm going to catch them and eat them. Right? Every second spent on looking for bugs or birds or anything to eat. And also the concept of freedom. Most of humanity did not know what freedom was. We did not know what human rights was. Like when I went to South Korea for the first time, when I heard people talking about animals' rights, I was really offended. Like, what do you mean puppies have rights? Why there are like billions of human beings don't even know what human rights are. So it's a very unusual thing for humans to understand what freedom is and to be even in a free society. And once you do get that luck or fortune to be in that society, I do think people like don't know what they got. They really don't know what they have. And often that leads people to make very bad choices and giving their freedom away, like my grandmother's did in North Korea. Like in North Korea, before Kim, the first Kim Il Sung came, I often say that like three fat Kims. I to think about the first one, right? He came to North Korean people and he promised them paradise. They said, I'm going to give you free education and free healthcare, free housing, and free food. I'm going to give you everything free. But in order to do this, we have to get rid of private property. We have to get rid of freedom of speech. And people gave all that away in the promise of paradise. So it's so heartbreaking to see in America people doing the exact same things right now. And every day we are giving away our rights to government and hoping that paradise is possible.
Yeah, thank you so much. I've seen you speak extensively about how this idea of socialism and communism is a false paradise. And you've dedicated your life to speaking about the dangers of socialism and communism. I'd be curious to know, what do you see as the biggest threats to the United States right now in terms of socialism and communism, and what can we do to actively combat that, to identify it and say no to it?
Yeah. Oh, sorry. So recently, New York just elected a publicly known socialist future mayor, right, who's running the race. Wow. And it was elected by highly educated group of people. And actually, the working class people don't want socialism, right? And it really shows what happens with the college education in America. In some sense, they instill two things, it seems like. One is entitlement, that you deserve everything. And the second thing is that it's possible for everything to be free. So that entitlement, and then also thinking paradise is possible, and that leads people to select this kind of officials who's going to lead us to poverty like North Korea is.
Wow, wow. And you've dedicated your entire life to speaking about the oppressive regime of North Korea, even despite immense pushback. I've seen that you've been put on their kill list. You receive death threats. What motivates you to continue to be so outspoken about your experiences and your beliefs despite that? And what advice do you have for the people in the room who are young conservatives, who are in college, and who are going to join the workforce?
Yeah. It's like, I became a Christian after I came to America and being a mom. And I asked one day to God, like, why do you allow North Korea to exist? Right? And like, it makes no sense. And in some sense, it's a clear example for humanity study. Like South Korea and North Korea are the same people. We've been the same people for 5,000 years, homogeneous nation with the same culture, with the same genetics, same language. We all love kimchi, right? But then it really shows what happens when one side choose socialism, when one side choose free market system. It has nothing to do with your genetics or culture or anything. It really depends on what system do you choose to live in. And I think that's why I know in America, we are not immune to tyranny. We can be so become like China, North Korea any day if we subscribe to the same ideology. And I cannot leave my son to go through what I went through and live in a situation where they don't even understand what human dignity means. So now that inspires me. I have to save America. But then also, when you go through something like that, there's a lot of guilt comes from it, because I'm not the only person who fought to be free. Out of 25 million North Korean people who are trapped inside, I became among the 209 people that made it to America over the last 80 years. So I do feel the responsibility of telling the story and try to free those people who are left behind.
Wow. And in that same vein, what's motivated you? What advice would you have for that next generation who's in the room, who are, some of us may feel hesitant to share our beliefs on our college campuses for fear of censorship or in fear of not getting a certain job offer. We some of us may want to go into politics but are hesitant because of all that we might face. So what advice would you have for the people in the room?
Yeah, I think in some sense, of course, you're gonna lose friends and some opportunities, obviously, but you are not at least getting executed right now. Like in North Korea, when I come to the West, right, people saying, why people cry in North Korea like hysterically when the dictator dies, right? As if they are all crazy people. Because if you don't clap or cry enough, you get executed in North Korea. Say your one wrong word, you literally 3 generations of your family gets executed along with you. So right now, the price that we have to pay to have an opinion is not that high compared to that. And if you keep submit to right now to this kind of little threats, eventually it leads to that. So before too late, I think we need to start and push it back. I think which has begun already. I see that a lot of people are pushing it back.
Right. Well, thank you so much. I'm going to pass it off to Madeline. She's going to share more about the mental health side of things.
Yes, absolutely. And I just want to first thank you for the advice. It is incredibly grounding to hear your experiences. I mean, all that we've known really is our experience here in the United States, but being reminded about what's going on around the world is reminding us really the boldness that we need to have as young Americans living in California, and it starts on our college campuses. So thank you for sharing it. It's incredibly emboldening for us. I also just want to navigate this conversation more onto the mental health side of things. You've mentioned surviving unimaginable trauma. How have you navigated the long-term psychological effects that your experience has had on you? And have you practiced things like meditation or faith, how you mentioned throughout your journey?
I practice yoga. It definitely brings me to earth and connected to myself and my surroundings. But when it comes to like mental health, I remember when I was writing my first book, my editor and publisher were telling me that I need to go get a therapy. And as like I asking like what's therapy? It's like it's a thing that you do when you went through trauma. You talk to somebody about what you went through and process your feelings. I'm like, and then I asked like, is it pay or is it for free? It's like you pay $250 per hour, and it's a special discounted rate in New York, right? I was like, no, thank you. you know, it's interesting. A lot of times when survivors do survive something hard, the rest of their life they spend to talk about how hard it was. Sometimes some of them have to do that, really, right? That's maybe only way they can cope with what happened. But in some sense, I realize is that people were looking at me, why do you smile so much? Like, why are you so high functioning? right? Like, how do you, never on Xanax or whatever it is that people take, right? Given my friends in New York, like, on the pills, like, and 80% seeing therapists every week. I mean, the first thing they told me, the most important thing in New York is going to be finding not right therapist, not right husband, right? It's like that important to them. But I think this modern American culture became, in some sense, stop reminding humans how resilient we are. Like, I mean, thinking about what our founding fathers or the pilgrims came here overcome, nothing to even what I went through. Like, I cannot believe those men came here or women came here and built this amazing country through all the hardship. So humans obviously are capable of overcoming unbelievable difficulties. And suddenly, the modern generation, we cannot like handle some speeches, and you get traumatized. So in some sense, I hope that this approach we become like reminding humans that we are very strong, we are very resilient, and that would be amazing approach. Yeah.
Absolutely. And I think your entire story is evidence of how resilient human beings are. So thank you so much for sharing. And you touched on it a little bit. I want to ask the next question if you'd like to elaborate. How has your idea of trauma, your perception of trauma, evolved since coming to the West, now learning more about mental health and I guess certain approaches like therapy, like you mentioned?
Uh, yeah, I think when I was writing the first book, I wrote things like there are two things that I'm grateful for. First was that I was born in North Korea, and second was that I escaped. It it seems so sad in life without seeing the darkness. You can never see the light or appreciate the light. And I'm grateful for the trauma that I experienced. So I can be grateful for the peace and safety and the normalcy, right? And it's a great strength that I get from even right now. Without that, I think I would be this like easy, soft mom to my son. I'd be like, telling him, even if he fails, like as long as you did your best, that's enough. Like the American moms, right? Like the Asian moms, nobody remembers number two. Unless you make the number one, it doesn't matter. So I think it's a good thing that we push our limits all the time, that the competence matters, the excellence matters, and the meritocracy is a great thing. So I'm grateful for that past, so I can be resilient, tough, and give that to my son, hopefully.
Yeah, resilience is such an important thing that I feel like us as a next generation can really grow and build on. So right now, there are some students right now who have a few questions that we'd like to ask you. So I want to open it up to anybody here who has questions for Yeonmi Park.
Yeah, well, thank you so much for being here. And just hearing everything you have to say is very inspiring, especially as a young conservative in such a liberal landscape through college or the workforce, wherever it may be. I wanted to ask you, when you're in America escaping from North Korea, were there moments where you mentally felt like you were still kind of trapped or living in the ways that you had known in North Korea? And how did you remind yourself that you were no longer trapped, or even practical things like you said, like enjoying the birds? That's such a beautiful analogy. So what was that like mentally for you to adjust in your move to America?
Oh, yeah. It's interestingly enough, I talked to so many like defectors myself and my mom. Even after you escape, in our dreams, we are always in North Korea and trapped. So many of us wake up in the middle of night, like pinching ourselves. Am I actually in free country, or like am I back into North Korea? But of course you feel the pain, and I remember, okay, if you pinch yourself, you feel the pain, it's not a dream anymore, right? In some sense, you can feel like it's so frustrating. In my dreams, I can never escape North Korea. But then in some sense, it's a good reminder that the world is not like America. This is not the norm. I think most of people forget that more than 4 billion human beings right now are not free. But when you live in America, it feels like this is the normal human condition, right? So I try to, even the fact I cannot change my dreams, but I try to enjoy and try to get something out of it. Yeah. Thank you.
Hi, Yeonmi. My name is Victoria, and I just thank you so much for being here. It's so wonderful to have a woman global activist that we can look to, especially navigating our country and just the world now. I want to ask you today, as someone whose family survived the Cambodian genocide 50 years ago, I've truly grown to see how trauma can ripple across generations in silence. And Yeonmi, in your experience, how can we create global and inclusive conversations around trauma and mental health that truly center the voices of survivors from authoritarian regimes or war zones?
Yeah, it's a real. I have to say, not everybody come out like I did. I think also genetics matters. How you respond to trauma. I survived something much earlier than my even own sister. I went through the sex trafficking at 13, and my sister did at 16. And the response both of us have to is very different. And I don't think my sister will ever get over it. In some sense, she will forever live with that trauma, right? So I really don't know. Actually, honestly, I don't know how to help people who have different response than I am to their own trauma. But it seems something that we need to study further, since because this kind of trauma is affecting so many millions of people every year. Even in America, human trafficking happens, right? And so many countries still like struggle for freedom and dignity. So it is something that we need to raise awareness about. Yeah. Thank you.
I want to thank you for being here today. Your story is very inspiring to all of us. My question to you would be, were there any culture shocks or adjustments that you had to make when you escaped North Korea and came to the United States?
Oh, thank you. That's a fun question because like, where do I begin? It's I was talking about it like with Andrew Schultz. You guys, like he's a comedian, was asking me like, what was your type of man? I was like Kim Jong Un. Because in North Korea everybody's so skinny. Like the only person who's fat and bald is like Kim's. So that is the ideal man, right? So when I came to America, people don't want that anymore, right? They wanna be all like very fit and skinny. That was very surprising, and also like seeing this thing called like gyms. You literally go pay your money to burn your energy. Right, like in North Korea, if I move around unnecessarily, my mom yell at me. Why are you burning calories for no reason? Like sit down, right? You're like not allowed to run around because you don't have a lot of calories. So seeing that, like how people volunteered, my friends spending so much money at the gym called Equinox. Oh my god, like $250 a month and doing this voluntarily, I'm like couldn't believe this. And like also food, I was talking to Joe Rogan about it. He said, it's so hard that we have so many delicious food in America. I'm like, that's a problem? How on earth that can be a problem that you have so many food and available, right? So it was very hard for me to have sympathy in the beginning with my friends. Like my friends would like go Yelp and check the reviews, and they want to be in line for an hour to eat at this restaurant. I'm like, quantity matters, not the quality. And then like of course this dating problems that modern people have in New York. They like showing me dating apps and they get so depressed about it, and I couldn't empathize, like that's not a problem. He didn't text you, that's fine. So now I'm trying to adjust more and more and see even these little things can be a problem, and that's a good thing. That our problems is not life and death. That shouldn't be that way. It should be that our struggle should be this kind of a non-effective things. So yeah, thank you.
I had a question. You had mentioned earlier, you were kind of talking about religion a little bit. You said that when you came to the United States, you became a Christian. So I kind of wanted to ask you about religion in North Korea. Now, as I understand it, religion, like Christianity in North Korea is sort of suppressed a bit, and they do promote a religion. I believe that's called Juche, I want to say. So I kind of wanted to ask you, one, what is that religion? And two, what about that religion is beneficial to the regime to the point where it's promoted? And then what about Christianity is sort of seen as dangerous to the regime?
Yeah, that's an excellent question. Actually, it's very interesting what North Korea became it is today, right? Like when I was in North Korea, I truly believe that my dear leader Kim Jong Il could read my thoughts, and I thought if he write letters, those letters would fly and do magics and miracles. Like Jesus walked on the water, he could open up the mountain, like all those magic stories. So Kim Il Sung, the first Kim, was actually born in a Christian family. And then when he became the Communist Party leader, he thought, well, I can be a god, not just a leader. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy Bible. So I'm going to have a 10 commandments that is copied in his version. And he writes a Bible seems like his version. And then decide to brainwash North Korean people. So I'm a god. I love you guys so much. I'm giving you my son, Kim Jong-il. His body dies, but his spirit is with us forever. When you sacrifice for our revolution, you die and you come to join me and the afterlife in the socialist paradise. So, but then in order to do that, he had to actually ban the Christianity. Because if people read the real true Bible and true God, they're going to figure out this was a fake. That's why they literally killed 2 years old if their parents were Christians. It is the most persecuted country for a Christian to be in North Korea, and no church actually is allowed. And that's why there are no Christians. And Juche is the ideology of Kim Il-sung and Communist Party. And in some sense, actually, North Korea is the 10 largest religions in the world. So you can think of this as a religion. So in some sense, governments take it too far. They create their own religion, and then they create their own God. And people never heard of a thing called the Jesus Christ. Like myself, I did not know what that was. So I thought just my dear leaders were my gods.